Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Everything Dodgeball podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Leitinger. And today I'm here with Armando Valdes, the founder of Boston Anarchy. I think over the last 2 or so years, we've been off and on meeting on the court and also talking beside that about a few different projects. And so I found out about you at Vienna Calling a few years ago. And we got talking about dodgeball and all your plans, and I found it was very interesting, like the ideas and what you've done in dodgeball. So I thought I'd bring you on, talk a bit about your past, and also, much more important, about the future and the projects you've got up your sleeve for the next few months. So, Armando, without any further ado, introduce yourself to our listeners and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here. As for me, I'm the current treasurer for the World Dodgeball Federation, the founder of the Mexican Dodgeball Federation. And as you mentioned, we joined with a few other teammates to form Anarchy in 2017. So a lot of projects, a lot of ideas to grow dodgeball. I really like the sport, and just happy to contribute as much as I can.
Awesome. So, as I said, the first time I met you was playing against you at the Vienna Calling, where you played with Boston Anarchy. Tell me a bit about your history of playing dodgeball. How did you get into the sport? What's your connection to Anarchy?
So getting into the sport was actually a very fortuitous event. I used to play tennis competitively at the international level. I hurt my shoulder, so when I went to college, I stopped playing competitively, but I did continue playing recreationally. And one night at my school, my team needed a player for dodgeball because they had first a tennis match and then a dodgeball match. So they asked me to join their team for that night only, and I started playing. I liked it very much, and after the game, I asked if they had another game the next week, but that was actually the last game of the season. And in a way, I think that might have been partially the reason why I started playing dodgeball, because I did like the first match I played, but the fact that I wasn't able to play again really made me look into ways of playing. And I found a social league in Boston. At the time, it was called Social Boston Sports. Um, Dodgeball back then was not anything like right now. It was mainly a social game. We played uh, at a toddler's gym, so basically the floors were made of foam. We played in our socks, and yeah, it was very disorganized. But I started liking it a little more and more, and eventually, as a we've formed a team from the best players on that small area, and decided to go to Vegas for a dodgeball tournament that was organized back then. It was a national tournament, so we went there. We had high expectations because I think that's actually a very common misconception that um, everyone thinks they're the best at dodgeball until they actually start playing. And we went there and we got destroyed. Back then, Rice was one of the best teams in the country, and we got to meet them the hard way. So we came back to Boston, and then we started playing more competitively until we formed Davis Dodgeball, and that was our national team, our club team that played in the national scene. Eventually, we decided to merge with another Boston team that had a lot of success at the UDC, the trampoline tournament, if you remember.
Yeah.
And that's how Anarchy got started. Just with the idea of bringing the players that were most interested in building a competitive team and training every every day, every week, um, to try to make the best team uh, in the country.
Okay. So when was that exactly? So just for reference, when you start playing dodgeball?
So I started playing dodgeball at my last year in university, which was 2010,
All
and
right.
then um, Anarchy was formed in 2017. So it took like about 7 years for that process
Okay.
to happen.
And from then out, so Anarchy started like a mix of two teams, and obviously back then you played another ball type. When did you move it to cloth and make it more cloth dominant?
There's actually it's funny you bring that up because there was some misconception that Anarchy was formed around foam. Um, in reality, back then in the States, the predominant ball type was 8.5 rubber. Um, so that was our specialty, and we had a lot of success with it. Eventually, USA Dodgeball as a whole tried to align more with the international scene, and first foam was introduced, and eventually cloth, I think, was introduced in 2022, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm. Okay,
Uh,
and
so
so that's when you started to move from 8.5 to cloth, or was there something in between?
I know that's the first time we played cloth was at the first USA Dodgeball tournament. So we actually had never touched the cloth ball until we played at the tournament.
Okay, and what made you stick with cloth after so many years of different ball types?
So 8.5 started dying, um, and cloth, I think, is the most similar in terms of the remaining ball types, which were um, no sting, which was is another ball that's actually still being played a lot in the United States, especially at recreational level, and foam, which is I think the ball type that was introduced first to the States, and I mean from the international scene and the WDBF, and the one that's currently more predominant,
Mhm,
but is not as transferable from 8.5.
mhm. Okay. All right. So you've had a long career of playing dodgeball, but you've also always been like on the, at least as from the outside perspective, you also tried always to push the sport and make something organization wise as well. So what motivated you, or what skills did you bring to the table that led you in that direction?
The way I started getting into it, I was at um, uh, post post tournament party in Vegas.
Mhm,
That was, I think, 2013 or 14, and I met Bill Fisher, who was president of the WDBF at the time, and we got talking, and he asked how dodgeball was in Mexico, and I told him that it didn't really exist, and that with that I mean that it was not even play in schools. It was not known at all. So he asked if I was interested in um, starting something there, and I started looking into it. Eventually, uh, I managed to get a team to go to the first WDBF tournament for Mexico in Vegas. I think that was 2015, and from there kept on working on starting the federation until it really grew up after we hosted the World Championships in Cancun in 2019. Um, and yeah, so taking it from zero to I think they have about 10,000 people now, with uh, counting all the kids in the schools playing formally. It's something I never dreamt of, but it's
yeah.
really rewarding to see in
Yeah, that
retrospect.
sounds absolutely incredible. So take me a little bit through that process of getting it from 0 to 10,000. What steps needed to be taken, and what was your involvement throughout that process?
So I think it's a lot of luck. I think I did find a really good partner in Luis de la Riva, who is the current president. Uh, but the strategy I used back then was I wanted to create or show a path to representing the country. So the first thing I did was started a small tournament in Mexico City and one in Tijuana um, to try to recruit players for the WDVF championship. And so we had a small prize money and to try to lure people in. And um, we had three teams come into the first tournament in Mexico City. That was April 2014 or 15. And one of them was a team that Luis created. So we picked the best players from those two teams and then uh, paid for them to go to Vegas for the World Championship. Um, Obviously, with players that had just started playing, we didn't have a really good result. But the players that did go and got to see the level of competition, and I think most importantly, also the community um, got really interested in continuing the project. So, by then, we had two people that were really invested and started working hard towards building something in the country on the ground. Um, so slowly they started inviting their friends and their friends started playing and liking it, so they invited more friends and it grew organically um, until I think 2017 um, when a shift happened and instead of playing more competitively, some um, physical education teachers, which is actually a really big profession in Mexico, got interested in bringing that to schools. And I think that's when our numbers really exploded because it was not just adults playing recreationally, but kids being taught the game at
Mm.
uh, the elementary and secondary school levels. Um, and actually, one of the things that really impressed me and made me think of starting this more professionally, which we'll talk about in a second, is that in 2019, just before the pandemic, I got invited to the state games in Morelos, which is a small state south of Mexico City. And these games are organized between schools throughout the state, and they end up in a final match um, in one of the dates. So I went to that event as a representative of the Mexican Federation. And one thing that really struck me was that they told me that dodgeball that year was the second most popular sport across the entire state, just after soccer, and at the same level as volleyball, which has been being played for years and years. Uh,
Okay, wow.
so so yeah, yeah. So that really gives you an idea of how much people like playing the sport once they get involved in it.
Okay, that is absolutely awesome. So basically, from putting a little bit incentive with a little bit of money into a little tournament and then getting a few motivated people who sort of spread the virus throughout the country and then getting schools to commit to it as well and find out how fun it is. And then basically it explodes. So that sounds quite easy from the outside, but it takes a lot of time from 2017 or 2014 or something on. And how much work does it actually take and how much money? So who funded that first tournament and how did you organize it?
So I've been funding it myself until well, me and my wife Andrea Villagran, which who is the vice president of the Mexican Federation right now. Uh, but it does take a lot of time, a lot of money, and but in the end, it's really rewarding. I think one of that day at the state championships in Morelos, one thing that really struck me was that uh, you have kids from different backgrounds. So you have the private school kids who have all their equipment, their knee pads, latest top of the line. And then you have public school kids who actually don't own their own clothes because they are shared by the entire school. And whenever the kids have physical education, they get the uniforms from the school, and they get to wear them just for that period. Um, so just seeing everything come together and seeing this economic and social diversity on the court really struck me, because in Mexico that's kind of rare. It's a society that uh, tends to be a little bit segregated. So
Mhm.
being able to break those barriers was rewarding. And one of the things that really pushed me to try to um, help more, especially the disadvantaged kids, in getting to the sport, was that at the end of their match, um, the private school kids came to me and they wanted me to sign their shirts. So I did. And then, since the public school kids saw that happening, um, they wanted me to do the same, but their teacher wouldn't let them because it was not theirs, it was the school's. So um, it was a little bit shocking for me at the time because I didn't even know that happened. But
Mhm.
it was also gave me motivation to try to keep working towards making the sport more accessible to everyone.
Okay, that sounds absolutely crazy and rewarding and awesome. But what's your connection? Obviously, you are from Mexico, and so, but what's your connection to Mexican dodgeball or that community?
Yeah, so I was born in Mexico. I used to play for the Mexican national team. I was president for, I think it was 8 years or 9 years. And um, my main connection, I think, is just seeing or facilitating that growth. And it was really rewarding while I was at the top. And but then at the end, I think handing the reins over to Luis was the best decision, because he had been working from the start also as vice president, and I think he was ready to take over and keep growing the sport there. Um, and One more thing I will mention is that in Mexico, sports is very regulated.
Yeah.
So um, you have to have multiple layers of approvals, and you have to eventually belong to two main organizations. One that basically regulate the sport. So towards the end of my um, time as president, I was able to secure one of them. The second one, which is the most important one, Luis has been doing a fantastic job at getting, and I think he'll do that this year.
Okay, awesome. So it will be a recognized sport in Mexico.
Yes, and once you recognize, then you're the only ones that can uh, regulate it, and you're pretty much the only governing body of the sport in Mexico.
Okay, that is pretty advanced. And how is the funding in Mexico, or how is the state of the Mexican Federation? How do they fund themselves?
So I think the first time um, we ended up with positive numbers in terms of revenue was in 2022. So at the time, it started to become self-funded. It is a non-profit, so basically all the net revenue goes back and is reinvested in the sport. Uh, but right now, it's on financially autopilot, so it has enough revenue to support itself.
Okay, and it creates that revenue through funding from the government or through player tuition, or how does it fund itself?
So it's mainly tournaments, and I will say this though, um, it still does require some help. So sometimes um, I know Luis loans money to the federation with the expectation of getting repaid, but um, sometimes it does have short-term needs that exceed its capital, so it has to be helped. And Luis has taken over a lot of that now that I'm focused on other projects. But most of the events are uh, revenue positive right now.
Okay. Huh? That's definitely a good development. So, and from Mexico, take me to Puerto Rico. Is that sort of a similar story, or what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so Puerto Rico was a project that I started because Dwayne, the president of the WDBF, we were talking and he mentioned that we needed growth in the region. So my first instinct was to go to Guatemala because that's where my wife is from, and her dad had just been elected to Congress. So I thought it was going to be easy to get started there. The only reason I did not start there was that there was already a representative from Guatemala to the WDBF, and we tried to work with him. It was difficult, and the process to get someone replaced is not immediate because of the WDBF bylaws.
Uh,
So we started looking at other countries, and I have a lot of family from Puerto Rico, and it was easy to start there because we could get uh, players from the US to go there to work there without any visa or any issues, since Puerto Rico is a US territory. And that's how it started. And basically, with the same idea as Mexico, to try to um, get local tournaments, local clinics started in the island, and then bring players to the championships, which happened to be Graz. Um, so it was a little bit more investment because obviously Graz is farther away from Puerto Rico than Vegas from Mexico, but it was pretty much the same idea.
okay, and how is the timeline coming along, and how is dodgeball in Puerto Rico growing?
So it's been much harder than I expected because um, Puerto Rico is a much smaller territory than Mexico, so everything is closer together. And we had a lot of support from a nonprofit that used to have a lot of sports presence in Puerto Rico before the hurricane in 2018.
Mm,
Um, the problem with Puerto Rico right now is that a lot of the people that used to live in the island left towards the mainland US after the hurricane. And a lot of these programs were pretty much abandoned because of that. I think they lost about one third of their population after the hurricane. And in a way, that made things easier for us because finding court space, even huge stadiums, is really easy um, because local mayors want them to be used. There was a lot of investment to build them, and then no one is using them.
mm.
But on the flip side, it's hard to get people to come to any event because um, there are not that many people, and the ones that are there are basically playing the mainstream sports, the established sports, and they see dodgeball, and they still it's been hard to get them uh, to switch over, or at least try out.
Okay, but I've seen there was like a Puerto Rican slash US team at the Northern American Championships. So, what's the current stance? Is there any sort of dodgeball that is independent in Puerto Rico, or is it mainly just you guys trying to implement it or get it off its feet?
So I would say we have about uh, 20 people that are playing in Puerto Rico, and um, pretty much what we're trying to do. And the idea for the North American Championship was to just bring those 20 people to play and represent Puerto Rico. And actually, just to backtrack a little bit, that was also the idea for the World Championships. Um, but as I said, it's been really hard to recruit players and to believe in the project and to travel longer distances, even if we have covered their expenses. For grads, we were only able to get 5 people, and so we had to fill in the team with the people that were helping build the federation there. And in the end, the same happened for the North American Championship in Mexico City. That one was a little bit um, more due to the fact that the FAA canceled some routes from Puerto Rico to Mexico City, and for that tournament, we were not sponsoring the entire trip, just the hotels, and we did pay for the airfare for a couple players, but not we were not able to pay for every single one of them. So the ones that got their tickets canceled because of the route changes um, were not able to afford paying the more expensive tickets once they were closer to the tournament.
Okay.
Uh, and then we had to fill in the team to still have a representation.
Okay, so it's still gonna take a lot of work and a little bit of time to get Puerto Rico in the same direction as like country like Mexico.
Yes, and I think the what I will try next is trying to go to the schools, and that's one of the things that we're doing with Anarchy is starting summer camps in Puerto Rico. Just because I think that might help more than the competitive aspect in the shorter term.
Mhm.
I think it's just a different culture than Mexico, so I think some of the things that work in Mexico might not work as well in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And that's definitely interesting to see how, like how different the approaches have to be to like get the same results or similar results in different cultures or different political or other environments. Like I think especially the sports structure in every country is so different, and also like the mentality, how people adapt to new sports, how open they are to it, and how keen they are to really take over and evolve themselves is like really interesting to me. So I think it's definitely cool that you're putting that much effort and also money into different organizations trying to build them, and sometimes it's gets faster or better results, and sometimes it just takes a little more, but definitely cool to see. And I think also good for other people to see that it just takes a lot of time to and a lot of investments to get communities popping up. But once they do, it's really fulfilling. And that is really cool to see. And seeing that there are 10,000 players in Mexico is obviously for a sport like dodgeball, that is huge. That is
Yes,
sick.
absolutely, and it's once you look back at that, is that it makes it rewarding because I must be honest, like sometimes it's been hard. There's um, sometimes a lot of negative voices, and pushing through those, um, I think it's important also. But I wouldn't say it's always rosy and happy. Sometimes it's hard to get through.
Definitely. So what keeps you going through those tumultuous times basically?
So
Why are you
I
doing
think
that?
at first it was mainly for the love of the sport. I really liked playing it, and especially seeing the community that was built around it. And what's really curious to me is also that um, it's not only in a single country. Like every single country I've been to um, and seen the dodgeball community, I think the same applies. So it's very different from a sport like tennis. That's where I got formed, and um, I'm not sure if there's other sports that are the same as dodgeball, but it feels unique, and that's one of the main drivers for my passion, I think.
Okay, and so that's enough to keep you going in those adversary times, or when it's really tough, or when you're going to Mexico and no one is showing up, or to Puerto Rico and no one is showing up, and then you finance people to fly them to a tournament and routes get shut down. I mean, that's a lot of headache that you basically bring onto yourself voluntarily. And would you still say in the end it's worth it?
Oh yes, I think it is, and I think now um, I think I'm starting to transition into seeing it just as a volunteer thing, as to more as a business and something that can be grown
Hmm.
into a professional sport. So um, now the motivation is a little bit different, but I think it still goes in the same line of being able to grow the sport and getting it more mainstream, um, with everything that that entails. Because I think once people start seeing it as a sport and not just a game, you get so many more opportunities in terms of getting sponsors, getting um, more excitement from players also, and from parents, because they see a pathway for their kids once they start playing the sport.
Mm. Okay, so take me through your view of what the future might look like for dodgeball, and what are the steps that we need to make to get us there.
So I think there's two main pillars, and one of them we've been working for years, which is getting um, official recognition from Sport Accord, or what used to be GASIV, um, in order to be able to get the sport into the Olympics, and that will take years, but we're working towards that. At the same time, I think it's very important to have a real professional league, and the reason is that um, the league, in my view, is what will eventually um, get interest from sponsors, get interest from uh, more players, because once the players don't have to fund themselves, don't have to pay to play, then it's a different scenario. You have people really wanting to play also for um, exposure on the international stage, and to be able to make that a career. Um, I'm curious to see how that might change the community, and
Mm.
that's one of the things that I always try to be conscious to try to make sure that that's preserved, because I think that's one of the things that make the sport unique. But I think it's really important to get um, that sort of exposure to be able to have the growth we need um, in the next 5-10 years.
Mm. And how realistic do you think that is in the current worldwide situation, like sponsorship for sports? It feels like it's really tough for the established sports to keep their sponsorship, keep um, their time, the attention span and stuff like that. So how hard will it be for a new sport to get there, and like what niche can dodgeball um, like be in to make that happen?
So I think getting sponsors will be hard in the beginning, just because uh, they need to justify the return of investment. And right now, to be honest, I think most of the people that will hear this podcast are probably dodgeball players and
Yeah.
within the community. And the same happens to pretty much all the content we produce, except for few exceptions, like the uh, 2015 finals for the WDBF World Championships, which has been viewed millions and millions of times. And the rest is pretty much stays within the community. Um, so it's hard to sell that to sponsors. But and that's why they say that the reason of creating a professional league that gets a broadcasting partner, gets more views than just the people within the community, is really important, because then um, you have value to propose. And I think dodgeball is uniquely positioned to be able to capture more attention. Sports, and pretty much every sport. I think I was at the sports conference organized by MIT last year, and pretty much every sport, including Olympic sports, are having trouble keeping the attention of the newer generations, the digitally native um, population. So um, having a sport where you have five balls really helps. Um, being it more dynamic. And the other thing that I think will help us a lot is uh, introducing a lot of features through technology to augment the game and make it more interactive. Some of them we're going to be trying at the Champions Tour in April, but there's a lot more that can be done in the future years that I think will help the sport.
Mhm. Do you have like, we're gonna go into the Champions Tour next, but do you have like any specific recommendations for people that create leagues, tournaments, that produce online content, or that try to help that process come along? Stuff that would make it maybe advance faster or that would help internationally as well?
So I think there's two things. I think we're doing a great job in the recreational amateur space. Uh, but if you really want to get sponsors, I think there's many leagues where they're very lax in certain requirements like uniforms, team names, and I know it's part of the community and it's fun. I personally like it also, but when you go to a sponsor and they see this, they don't really see it as a serious sport that they will invest in. And I was talking to the head of content for Twitch in Miami 3 months ago, and one of the phrases she said really struck with me because she said like you have a blessing and a curse. You have a blessing because everyone knows the game; they have played it at some point in their lives. Uh, but your curse is that they think it's that game, so they don't see it as a sport that they can get behind, either in sponsoring or investing in production. So you have to be able to break that perception. And I personally think that Dodgeball Canada did a great job when they introduced their slogan, "You know the game, now meet the sport." I think that helped a lot. But when you have those kind of visuals, everyone wearing different clothes when playing, when you have uh, things that look really amateur, it's hard um, to produce content that will be picked up by sponsors and investors.
Mhm. Okay, so like the fine details to making the content even more professional or seem more professional and also more structured to viewers to like really see the difference between playing dodgeball in school and playing dodgeball in an international tournament or a league. Because pretty much every sport has that. Like if you play table tennis and you play ping pong in the park and then see table tennis on a professional level, those are two different things. And it's with everything basically. And also, like, I think for every sport, a big community that watches it is also the community that practices the sport in some sort of way. And there are a few exceptions which are just so driven into the culture that you watch them even though you have no actual participation or active knowledge of the game. But to get to that level, that seems like a really long-term goal. So I think it seems like to get the sport into the schools and get young people really hooked on the sport or on the game, and then showing them that there is a sport as well and something to aspire to, and players that they can look up to, and leagues that they can watch online, and highlight reels and stuff like that, where they can see the different levels of the game, is something that probably for the current position we're in is probably the more realistic, at least as a first step. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, that's the reason um, I started working on the Anarchy academies also, because I think that fits a lot into the same narrative. So I just mentioned getting people involved in the sport, and you really need the kids to grow up playing the sport. And I think you're doing a, a really good job in Vienna with Nasties, and I think Europe is doing a great job also in general with like the English teams and um, the Licorns in Paris. But we don't really have the same structure in North America, where you have a club team developing players all the way from the younger ages to um, the competitive level. and I think that pipeline is really needed to be able to sustain um, the sport in the short term, and also looking at it longer term for growth.
Yeah. But so basically, it's a two-way street where you need the professional level to get kids involved and also try to get schools to recognize that there is a sporting path, especially probably, I don't know how it is in America, but it seems like you really need a sort of a professional lane for a sport to really be integrated into college and uni and schools as well, so that there is sort of a prospect for it. Otherwise, it's just a fun game. So is there any progress in that direction you feel like?
Yeah, so that's the idea, and I think you're right. I think uh, it's difficult for kids to keep playing the sport when their parents feel that they have a shot at being a professional player in a mainstream sport, and um, at least giving a pathway to um, being professional in dodgeball helps counter that and validate um, to the parents that that's a sport that is worthwhile in investing. Um, at the same time, I would say that dodgeball is a little bit has a little bit of an advantage because many of the parents that we've seen in Mexico that had never played, once they started seeing their kids having so much fun, what we've seen is that they started creating their own senior leagues.
Okay.
So we have, I think Mexico had their first national masters tournament last year, and it was pretty much made out of parents that had a lot of fun watching their kids play and decided to start their own teams. So I think it, uh, as I said, like the sport is so dynamic that uh, it really captures people's attention even if they haven't played before. So we're betting a lot on that when we show it uh, uh, at the national level broadcast, and trying to get interest of people that had never seen the sport.
Okay. Yeah, that's also a channel. I love that. And that's something I really need to see at some point, at least when I'm old enough to play in a senior league. So I needed to be there at that point and to get some like pensioners world championships for people that are retired from the competitive side otherwise. All right, Amanda. So you've talked to me about, I think the first time you talked to me about it was 2 years ago. I think it was either at Vienna Calling or UDO, where you told me about this idea of a professional league tournament that you also want to televise or broadcast in some way. So tell me a little bit about the idea of the Champions Tour and what's the plan with that?
Yeah, so the main idea is to have a product that we can show sponsors and show investors and get them to see that it's a serious sport that they can get behind. So uh, the first edition of the tour will be in April, and our first idea was to have um, to film episodes. So get together for a weekend and then release the games uh, every week. So 1 week you would have um, you playing against the Leamington Spartans, and then the next week will be Anarchy versus Paris, and so on. Uh, However, the weekend we're doing this, it happens to be Holy Week, in which is very observed in most of Latin America, which is the main market for our broadcast partner.
Mhm.
So they thought it was a better idea to broadcast it live, just because they would have a lot of eyeballs and people that are pretty much home and just watching TV, and it will be easier to get them hooked into the sport if they see it live.
Mhm.
So that was the pivot basically. Um, but yeah, the idea is to have something that's really professional, something that um, is for the players, but is also for the spectators. I think it's a shift in the lens of how tournaments are organized in terms of thinking about who's going to consume the content, also, and not just with 100% view of the players.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the current For anyone who's never heard of the Champions Tour, explain it. What's the idea that you've got into a little bit, but also like what's the product, what we're gonna see.
So for the product, we're trying to bring some of the best clubs uh, in the world together for a tournament, and um, obviously there's a lot of good clubs, and we were not able to bring all of them, but we did want to showcase the best of the best, and so we started by picking teams from the best three countries from the WDBF rankings, and looking at teams that had very strong brands that were already established, that they were um, champions in their own right, and bring them together in a structure that's similar to the Champions League for football or soccer, depends on where you're from. But um, yeah, giving them a platform to show their talent and um, eventually be recognized and help um, fund their different programs by getting more sponsors. That's the main goal.
So into how much detail do you want to go right now? What's planned in April in Mexico City?
So for Mexico City, we have 8 teams: two from Austria, two from England, two from the States. We have a European wild card, which is the Paris Licorne, and then uh, we were not sure what to do about the 8th spot, but given that our broadcast partner is headquartered in Mexico City and Buenos Aires, it seemed to be a good idea to have a local team. So that's what we did. Um, and also part of it is that I think it will help grow the sport in Mexico even more now that they have uh, some sort of participation in this project.
Mm,
Uh, but and the idea is to bring them together. We have 2 groups of 4 each, trying to divide them equally in terms of geographical representation. So we'll have the draw event in February, but the idea is to separate teams from countries. So the 2 teams from Vienna will not play each other in the round robin, and same for the US teams or the English teams. Um, the best 2 teams from the round robin will make it to the semifinal, and then the the best team, the champion, will also get the monetary prize.
mm. Okay. And you said it's going to be live broadcasted. What games are all of the games live broadcasted? Is that set in stone every detail, or is it still a work in progress?
Yeah, so the final will be broadcasted in on the Telemundo Fast network. So that's a subsidiary of NBC Universal, has a reach of 100 million devices, and so that will be broadcasted live for. I think it will be probably the biggest broadcast in the history of the sport so far.
Yeah.
Uh, the round robin, I think 2 games will be broadcasted on cable,
Hmm.
and the rest will be broadcasted on the channel's streaming service.
Okay. So, but pretty much every one of those games will be in some sort televised, and then some sort in some way live or possible to watch afterwards.
Yes, exactly. And every single game will be recorded professionally. So we have 6 professional cameras, 1 drone, 2 POV cameras, um, and I think about 20 microphones. So it will be really high quality, and
Mm,
um, yeah, we're investing a lot in that. I think that's the main difference, to try to make content and the product that show this as a mainstream sport, even if we're not at that level yet.
mm. Okay, so it's basically a product that we want for future references and where we want to get a return of investment in the future. And so we try to make the like present the sport from the best side that it's perfect that it's currently got. Is that like the right idea?
Yes, exactly. So getting the content that we can then go to Red Bull or Coca-Cola or Nike and or Adidas and show them this is where we're going, and um, I believe that will make it much easier to have those conversations. Um, and we already have some brands that are interested and they're coming. They're not most of them are not investing yet, but I
Mm.
think being able to view them live, uh, view the games live, especially the finals, will be a turning point in how they view the sport.
Okay, that sounds absolutely sick. Can't wait to get there. So, how do you currently finance stuff like this, and what's the long term plan to get back the investment?
So it most of it right now is personal investment. I have, um, and I've been telling some people about this, but lately, with the advance of AI models and especially generative AI, um, I think a lot of in the industries in the future will be taken over. That's probably not in the short term, but at some point. One of the areas that I think will survive is sports, because that's really something that you cannot replace with a machine. Being able to see um, people play against each other and just the raw athleticism and skills, I think will survive for a long time. So um, that's why I started investing in the area, and um, I think um, longer term it will have a lot of returns.
Mm.
Um, but for me, it was not about the money in the beginning, and it's not only about the money now. But uh, I do think there will be a lot of um, opportunities for capital growth in sports and in dodgeball in particular.
Okay, that would be like the perfect merger where you have the thing that really gives you a lot of value outside of money, and in the end, it at some point also returns it money wise. That would be great for I think every dodgeballer who's put a lot of effort and enthusiasm and time and money into the sport. That is something that they probably are looking forward to. But as you said before, there might be a transformation period or something that might change the community business because, as you said, that is something that makes the sport sort of special and different to other sports that you've um, participated in the past. So, how do you think we can make it happen that we get both of the good sides, basically get some more money, get some more recognition, get a professional league, get this sort of prospect for young players, and still keep the core values of the current community as it stands?
Yeah, so I think that's going to be one of the main challenges. I think um, on the one hand, I think it's really important to be able to have this recognition, this funding, because it enables things at every level. So um, number one, and I see it in Mexico also. Like sometimes the best players cannot travel to the World Championships because they don't have the funds, and that's something we should not see. We should be able to fund travel for those players at every level, whether it's amateurs going to tournaments, whether it's professionals. That shouldn't really happen. But then you also have dedicated refs, refs that their job is to officiate dodgeball games. So we do see that in Mexico now. It's not their only job, but it's one of their main jobs. Um, and being able to get that also gets you better quality,
Mhm.
because people that otherwise will be interested sometimes do not, because they have to eat, and sometimes they go to other sports that pay money because of that. I think it would be nice to be able to have a career of um, build a career around dodgeball. I think that's important. Um, but the flip side, I think, and we've seen that at some point with dodgeball already, when there's been prize money, is that the culture shifts a little bit. One of the things I really like about the sport is its honesty and integrity, and most countries appreciate that also. And even ones that do not, at some point when they start playing more and more and get more involved in the community, they see why it's important to take your outs, for instance, and not wait for the ref to call you out. And I think it's really important to preserve that in the sport. It's really easy to get into a vicious circle where someone doesn't take their outs, and then the opponent sees that, and after the second or third time, they might think twice about doing the same,
Mm.
especially if there's some money involved. So um, I think that's where we really have to be careful about to be able to preserve those areas.
Mm. Will we have any, like I've seen Canada or the VCL, I think, um, implemented a challenge system. I don't know how, if it's been implemented yet or if it's actually been at any tournament as of yet. But is there something like that that you want to implement or try out for the Champions Tour? Because I think obviously we hope that everyone there plays fair, and as you said, there's going to be a little bit of prize money as well. But we really, I think, want to portray those values for the public as well. And if we get a final that is televised live, and maybe we have a lot of cameras and we get some cheating there, then will be really detrimental to the sport, in my opinion. So how do we make certain that doesn't happen?
Yeah, there is a challenge system in the rules for the Champions Tour, similar to what the NFL does. The idea is to um, give the opportunity to teams to challenge plays that um, where they think it's going to make a difference, and where they're pretty much certain that something happened that was not called the right way. Uh, but at the same time, trying to balance that with not stopping at
Mhm.
every single play, because otherwise the product will suffer a lot in terms of um, being much slower than it could be. So it's definitely a balance, but we will have a challenge system.
Mhm.
But most importantly, I think, and that's one thing that we really need to think hard about, is how to prevent cheating. Because as you said, like, if you have six cameras, it will probably be in one of the takes if someone cheats. And if we're showcasing this as the highest level of competition, and kids see that, then um, they might want to imitate the same uh, if they see their idols cheating. So it's something we really want to prevent.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think probably the integrity of the community, the sort of players that are gonna be there as well, and also like the exposure of six cameras. I think that will be just enough to keep it really clean and great. But the second thing you said, like the balance of keeping the game flowing, especially if we produce it live. We saw that like at the World Championships in Graz, where you had a lot of games that had a lot of stoppage time, which is something you don't really want to see in a professional sport. And I know you have that in other sports as well. And like in the NFL, it sometimes also takes a lot of time to get calls, or like VAR in football. It also takes time, but if it's integrated well into the product and the people are taken on that journey, and the audience also know what's going on and what decisions the refs have to make, then it can be sort of an extra point of suspense, and like an extra view that brings a little bit more of dramatic tension into the game. So how do you think about implementing that into a live production? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. So the first thing is that one of the directives we'll give the refs is that they try not to stop the game when they have um, a doubt. So if um, the idea is for them to call what they think it is, even if they're not 100% sure,
Yeah.
since teams will have the opportunity to challenge that if necessary. So in the instances where that does happen, where a team disagrees with the ref's call, then they can throw a challenge flag, and that will trigger the VAR or review process. So the ref will go and see um, the video. Will, of course, in that time show the audience replays selected by the camera team, and eventually the ref will come in and announce the decision based on what they saw, and then um, we'll continue the game after that.
Okay, that sounds really cool. I really hope that that like works out nice and we can implement that into sort of upper leagues as well on a national level, because I think that would also make it more transparent, the sport even cleaner, and also give like the audience more an in-depth view of what's going on, because I think that's pretty much the biggest problem of those breaks, that no one knows what's going on. Basically, the refs get into a huddle, they talk to each other, they don't know what's going on. I've been in a lot of those huddles as well. So it's basically like, did you see it? No, I didn't see it. I think I saw something like that. And in the end, there's going to be a decision and no one knows what's like the thought process behind it. And that's where the viewers really get left behind. And then there is some decision and it is what it is. And I think that's even the bigger problem than just the stoppage of time. So I think it will be really cool to see that implemented. And yeah, I think that is something that we have to work on in the next few years to really get that cleaned up, so that the game flow gets even more dynamic and not stopped in between.
Absolutely, and I think that's a crucial part of it, as you mentioned, to be able to have the audience hear directly from the refs, because so far from most of the streams, most of the content I've seen, the commentators have to try to guess what the call was and
Yeah,
why. And I think it's important for the ref to speak to the audience in the stadium, but also to the audience on the camera to explain what happened.
yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, so you've do you think like, or how far are you along with finalizing everything for that event? Like, how far in the process are we?
So pretty far along. Mainly, it's logistical things that have to work out. So, for instance, hotels for the players. One pretty big chain is interested in sponsoring the event, but it takes time to sign the papers, and we have fallback plans in case that doesn't get signed. But just work of getting agreements, getting signatures, and uh, moving on from there. I think in terms of how the um, the tournament will run and how things will be done. Most is finalized, but it's just implementing it that's still a lot of work.
Mm. So, how optimistic or realistic do you think it is that we gonna see a perfect dodgeball product in April in Mexico City?
So I'm always very optimistic. That's one of the things that defines me, and my wife always comments on. But at the same time, I think most of the time I've been able to deliver on that optimism. So uh, I think I'll keep being optimistic.
Awesome. That's definitely good to hear, because I, for one, can't wait to see it all in person and like experience that kind of dodgeball presentation tournament level. I think if everything like comes to fruition there, this could be a really special moment for the sport in general. So on the one hand, absolutely thank you for putting in all that work, money, time into dodgeball in general, but also like continuously trying to progress the sport. And if you make some money off of it in the long term, I think that is also good for everyone, because it like shows a path. Because I think that is something that is still not really there in the sport of dodgeball, because you have on the one side, as you said, there is no way to become a professional athlete, which is something obviously that opens a lot of doors, but it's also the other side of making some money by being a dodgeball organizer or a dodgeball entrepreneur or something like this. And I think that is also such an important role, because it even it makes the other side even possible. So you need those people who have connections, who have skills, who bring something from their regular jobs and make the organization part of dodgeball way more professional and better, and also find a way to get sponsors in, um to get funds, and to create dodgeball tournaments that can really push it to the next level. So I think that is much, probably at this point, way more important than to have really good dodgeball players. But I think the one side helps the other. So from that, just thank you to you. I think everything that I have seen up to now really convinces me that you're doing a great thing for the sport, and so I hope to see progression of that in April. So thanks, just from me and from the dodgeball community, as I think.
Thank you, Stefan. And I think the idea is for everyone to win. And I know that I know it from personal experience, but I also know it from seeing other people that most of the players that I've seen invest a lot of time and money and effort in playing the sport. And I think, especially for those at the highest levels, it should be the other way around, at least in terms of money, that they should be the ones being paid instead of having to pay into the sport. So that's one of the things that I'm really keen on.
Uh, yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, that would be a nice thing, and I think that would be a great goal to work towards. But as I said, I think for me, and I think that is also like something that will make the community even better and progress in the right direction, where it's not that you just value like athletic skill and dodgeball skill, which is what we are all trading for and what keeps us very motivated, but the community aspect lives a much more from the effort that people put in. So I think if we can as a community set a standard where everyone knows that work, that effort that you put into the community and the sport is really valued, and that it is probably more worth than being a good dodgeball player, then I think the community is even better off for that. Well,
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. So on that point, is there anything else that you want to get into about the Champions Tour? Any finer details or something that like the listeners can look forward to in the next months leading up to that tournament? What's planned on the social media or the on the PR side, and what can we expect in the lead up to that tournament?
So one of the things that we're working on, and again, just to try to make this entire ecosystem, is fantasy dodgeball league. So just to try to get everyone more involved in the game. Most of the mainstream sports have something similar now. Not most of them not made by themselves, but by other companies, and we really want to get that going from the start, to be able to have advanced analytics, AI driven um, um, comparisons and statistics. So
Mm.
um, trying to use technology as a means of getting the audience more engaged and uh, making the sport, uh, differentiating the sport from the start. So it's something we're investing a lot of time and mainly time in right now. And um, I think it's important to use that towards the as an advantage for the sport, because we're still small, we're very nimble. Uh, the established sports have a lot of red tape to go through when they want to innovate. So
Mm.
I think that's one of our advantages right now, and it's something we need to exploit.
Okay, that sounds absolutely awesome. A fantasy dodgeball league. I love that. And I think a lot of people, dodgeballers, will be up for that. So So you personally trying to implement that, or who do you have to get that started?
So I have a small team, but to be honest, I think one of the things that have changed in the last couple of years is AI. It does help a lot. Um, a single um, agent can replace a small team of junior um engineers,
Mm,
which is sad to say at the same time, especially since that's my main profession. I'm a um, computer science major um, myself, but um, it does help to speed a lot of things up. I think things that used to take 1 month can be done in a matter of minutes or hours. So um, it helps speed innovation. It's, as I said, it's a little bit sad to see that happen in terms of what might happen to the profession in the future. But it's it does help a lot to start, especially startups trying to develop ideas quickly.
mm. And definitely for if you don't have the resources or the teams behind it, it makes it possible for smaller organizations to do things that usually are reserved for much bigger organization with much more resources and funds. So that is definitely something that a small community like Dodgeball can definitely latch on to and profit
Exactly,
from. Although
exactly.
there are obviously a lot of other side effects to it, but that's a topic for another podcast. I feel like that's not where I have been skilled
Yes,
as of yet.
exactly.
Okay, so maybe that's my last point. So you said you're a computer scientist. So you got into dodgeball through university, through your sporting background, and you also come from it to it from a business perspective. So what do you do that overlaps or that like gives you the skills to do all that sort of stuff in the world of dodgeball? Where do you come from?
From very early on in my career, I really wanted to uh, innovate, and I've started two different startups, and in the technology space. One was too advanced for its um, time. It was like more like a social app, but it was before social was a thing.
Okay.
So that didn't work out. But then the second one was a mobile payments app that eventually was acquired. So um, that bringing that background of innovation and technology and trying to apply it to dodgeball, I've seen that a lot of the skills have transferred very well. But that's also the reason why uh, a lot of what I'm doing is technology based, and I think it will give us an edge over the traditional sports down the road.
Mhm. Okay. That sounds cool. Makes sense. I have no idea about that field, so I'm currently always struggling to make AI do my little organization club wise or for the podcast or stuff like that, and it helps me with that, but it also gives me the same amount of headaches or difficulties. But it's definitely something I'm working on. So, Armando, I think this is a good place to end this. Thank you so much again for hopping on. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and I'm so much looking forward to the Champions Tour in Mexico City. Can't wait to see what the next level of dodgeball looks like and everything in between. So, and I think we'll see each other in a month in in Paris. Is that right?
Yes, end of February, we'll see each other. And yeah, thank you very much, Stefan, for having me. I have a lot of fun, and I hope to see you and everyone in the audience watching the games on April 3rd and 4th from wherever you are.
Definitely. That's a big shout out. So April 3rd and 4th, that's when the Champions Tour is gonna happen. And you can watch that live on Telemundo or something like that. What's we definitely gonna pop up the streams and the links when we have them. But what's the station people should be looking at?
Yes, the final will be on Telemundo. And then we also have streaming for people that do not have access to Telemundo, like in Europe and um, Asia. But we'll publish the links, and I'll send them to you also, so that you can put them in your page,
Perfect.
Stefan.
Awesome. So till then, keep looking at the Anarchy socials to get updates for the Champions Tour and everything in between. And for the two of us, thank you everyone for listening. Keep throwing those balls. Try not to get caught, and take care, everyone. All right. So I'm gonna end this right here.